The rain had been falling for hours, turning the forest road into a river of mud. Leora Severin lay face down at the edge of a ditch, her gray traveling dress torn and soaked through with blood and rainwater. Her wrists were raw where the rope had cut into them before she'd managed to work herself free. Her ankle was twisted, possibly broken, and every breath sent fire through her ribs. She could still hear Lord Ambrose Creighton's voice from 3 nights ago, calm and measured as he stood over his wife's body. Such a tragedy. The governess went mad. Poisoned dear Helena in a jealous rage. Leora had walked into the wrong room at the wrong moment. She'd seen him standing there, the empty vial still in his hand, his wife gasping her final breaths on the bedroom floor. Their eyes had met. In that single heartbeat, her life had ended. Not literally, not yet. But everything she'd been, the respectable governess with modest hopes for a quiet future, had died in Lady Creighton's bedchamber. Within an hour, Creighton's guards had seized her. Within a day, a magistrate had signed a warrant for her arrest. Murder of a noblewoman. The punishment was hanging. She'd tried to tell the truth. She'd begged them to listen. But Lord Creighton sat on the King's Council. His word was law in 3 counties. Who would believe a governess with no family and no connections against a man who dined with royalty? No one. The transport wagon had been taking her to the capital for trial. A trial that would last perhaps 10 minutes before they dragged her to the gallows. But somewhere on this godless road, the wagon had hit a rut. The guard had been distracted, and Leora had thrown herself into the darkness and the rain, choosing uncertain death over certain execution. She'd run until her ankle gave out, crawled until her arms wouldn't hold her. Now she lay in the mud, feeling the cold seep into her bones, wondering if this was better or worse than the noose. At least here, she would die free. The rain pelted her back. She could no longer feel her fingers. Her vision was narrowing, darkness creeping in from the edges like a closing curtain. They would find her body eventually. Lord Creighton would express appropriate relief that the dangerous murderess had perished before she could spread her lies. He would remarry within a year. Some other young wife with money and beauty, and no idea what kind of monster she was binding herself to. And Leora would be forgotten. A footnote. A cautionary tale about servants who reached above their station. She closed her eyes. I'm sorry, Helena. I tried. Lady Creighton had been kind to her, had treated her almost like a friend rather than an employee, had confided her fears about her husband's growing coldness, his secret meetings, and his strange absences. Now they would both be dead, and Ambrose Creighton would continue breathing. There was no justice in this world. Leora understood that now. The rain continued to fall, washing the blood from her temple, carrying it away into the darkness. Her heartbeat slowed, her breathing shallowed. Somewhere in the distance, she thought she heard hoofbeats. Imagination, probably, the mind creating comfort where none existed. She let the darkness take her. The hoofbeats were real. A rider was moving fast through the storm, his horse's pace reckless on the treacherous road. He should have passed her, should have missed the bundle of wet fabric and broken limbs at the ditch's edge, but the horse shied, sensing something wrong. The rider cursed, reining in hard. Leora heard boots splash into mud, heard a man's voice, low and sharp. Bloody hell. Hands turned her over, surprisingly gentle despite their strength. Rain struck her face. She forced her eyes to open, seeing only a dark silhouette against darker clouds. Can you hear me? She tried to speak. Managed only a weak moan. You're frozen through. His voice was deep, educated, carrying an authority that expected obedience. How long have you been here? Her lips moved. No sound emerged. He leaned closer, and she caught the scent of leather and wood smoke. I'm going to lift you. It's going to hurt. It did. Pain exploded through her ribs and ankle as he gathered her against his chest. She cried out, the sound swallowed by the rain. I know. Stay with me. He carried her to his horse, mounting with her cradled awkwardly in his arms. The animal protested the extra weight and the storm, but the man's control was absolute. There's an inn 2 miles east. Can you survive that long? Leora's head lolled against his shoulder. The warmth of his body was shocking after the cold. She felt herself slipping again, the darkness reaching for her. His arm tightened around her. His lips brushed her ear. Stay awake, he whispered. Do you hear me? Whatever you've done, whoever you're running from, none of it matters if you die in my arms. So stay awake. She didn't know why those words anchored her, didn't know why a stranger's command could reach through the fog when nothing else had. But she forced her eyes to remain open, watching the rain streak past, counting the horse's hoofbeats like a prayer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. The world blurred into darkness and motion and the steady rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't her own. Leora woke to firelight and the smell of wood smoke. She was lying in a bed, a real bed with clean linens and heavy blankets piled atop her. Her ankle was bandaged, her ribs wrapped tight, her wrists treated with some kind of salve that dulled the rope burns to a faint sting. For a long moment she simply breathed. In and out. Alive. 3 days. The voice came from somewhere to her right. Leora turned her head, wincing at the stiffness in her neck. A man sat in a chair by the window, watching her with eyes the color of a winter storm. He was perhaps 35, with sharp features and dark hair that fell across his forehead in a way that suggested he hadn't slept recently. His clothes were expensive but practical. No ostentatious embroidery, no jeweled rings, just quality wool and leather, the uniform of a man who valued function over display. You've been unconscious for 3 days, he clarified. The physician wasn't certain you'd wake at all. Where am I? A coaching inn, 12 miles from where I found you. He rose, moving to the small table beside her bed where a pitcher of water waited. Can you sit? She tried. Pain flared through her ribs, but she managed to prop herself against the pillows. He held the glass to her lips with impersonal efficiency, watching her drink. Thank you, she whispered when she'd had enough. Don't thank me yet. He set the glass aside and returned to his chair, crossing one leg over the other. I've spent 3 days keeping you alive, paying physicians, and deflecting questions from curious innkeepers. Now, I want answers. What kind of answers? Start with your name, then explain why you were lying half dead in a ditch with rope burns on your wrists and a warrant for your arrest in the nearest town. Leora's stomach dropped. You know about the warrant? The magistrate's men came through yesterday, asking if anyone had seen a young woman matching your description, accused of murdering Lady Helena Creighton. His gaze never wavered. I told them I'd seen nothing. Why? Because I wanted to hear your version first. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. So tell me, Miss whoever you are, did you kill her? No. The word came out fierce despite her weakness. I didn't kill anyone. I saw him do it. Lord Creighton. He poisoned his own wife and blamed me because I was the only witness. Something flickered in the man's expression. Not quite belief, but not dismissal either. That's a significant accusation against a member of the King's Council. It's the truth. The truth doesn't matter much when a powerful man wants you dead. He stood, walking to the window, his profile sharp against the gray light. Why would Lord Creighton murder his wife? I don't know. Lady Helena suspected he was involved in something. Secret meetings, unexplained absences. She'd started asking questions. Leora's voice cracked. Maybe she found answers he didn't want her to have. The man was silent for a long moment. Then he turned back to face her. My name is Theron Valdris, Duke of Stormhaven. Leora felt the floor drop beneath her. Everyone knew that name. The Duke of Stormhaven, one of the most powerful men in the Northern Territories. Cold, calculating, politically ruthless. It was said he'd never lost a battle, political or otherwise. Why would a duke stop for a woman in a ditch? Perhaps I was curious. A ghost of something that wasn't quite a smile crossed his face. Or perhaps I recognized the handiwork. 4 years ago, Lord Creighton accused my younger brother of treason, fabricated evidence, bribed witnesses. My brother was executed before I could prove his innocence. Leora's breath caught. I'm sorry. So am I. Every single day. His eyes met hers, and she saw something beneath the steel, something that burned. You say you witnessed Creighton commit murder, that you can testify to what he really is. Yes, but no one will believe me. I'm nobody. You're a witness. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back. And I've been waiting 4 years for someone who could help me destroy that man. What are you suggesting? Theron Valdris studied her for a long, measuring moment. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we'll discuss terms. Then he was gone, leaving Leora alone with the fire and a choice she didn't yet understand. Morning light crept through the window, pale and weak. Leora had barely slept, her mind turning over the Duke's words until they'd worn grooves in her thoughts. I've been waiting 4 years for someone who could help me destroy that man. A knock at the door made her pulse jump. Come in. Theron entered carrying a tray of food himself rather than sending a servant. He set it on the bedside table without ceremony. You need to eat. The physician says you've lost too much weight. I was a governess, not a lady of leisure. We don't eat much. You'll eat now. He pulled the chair closer to her bed and sat, watching her with those unnerving gray eyes. Have you considered my words from last night? Leora reached for the bread, more to occupy her hands than from hunger. You said we'd discuss terms. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership? You have knowledge I need? I have resources you need. What kind of resources? Protection, for one. The moment you surface anywhere in this kingdom, Creighton will know. His reach is extensive. His methods are efficient. Theron's voice was matter of fact. You won't last a month on your own. And with you? With me, you become untouchable. He leaned back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Marry me. Become the Duchess of Stormhaven. No magistrate in this kingdom would dare arrest my wife on the word of anyone, even a council member. Leora nearly choked on the bread. Marry you? We've known each other 3 days, 2 of which I was unconscious. This isn't about romance, Miss Severin. It's about strategy. As my wife, you gain immunity. In exchange, you help me build an unassailable case against Creighton. Every detail you remember, every conversation you overheard, every suspicion Lady Helena shared with you. And then? Then we destroy him. Publicly, completely. So thoroughly that not even the king can protect him. Leora set down the bread. Her hands were trembling. Why should I trust you? I don't know you. For all I know, you're worse than Creighton. You don't know me, Theron agreed. But you know what he is. You've seen it firsthand. He stood, moving to the window. My brother was 23 when Creighton had him executed. Maven was idealistic, foolish. He'd discovered something about Creighton's finances, irregularities that suggested corruption at the highest levels. Before he could bring evidence to the proper authorities, he was arrested for treason. What kind of irregularities? I never found out. The evidence disappeared with my brother. Theron's jaw tightened, but I've spent 4 years gathering fragments, whispers, patterns. Creighton is involved in something far larger than one murdered wife. I just can't prove it. And you think I can help you prove it? Lady Helena was investigating her husband. You said so yourself. Whatever she discovered, whatever made him decide she had to die, you may have pieces of that puzzle without even knowing it. Leora absorbed this. The fire crackled. Rain continued to tap against the window. "If I agree," she said slowly, "I want your word that this is about justice, not just vengeance." "Is there a difference?" "Yes. Vengeance is personal. Justice protects others." She met his eyes steadily. "Creighton will do this again. He'll find another wife, another victim, another scapegoat. I want him stopped. Permanently. Not just punished for your brother's sake, but prevented from ever hurting anyone else." Theron studied her for a long moment. His gaze softened, the usual guardedness giving way to something warmer. "Agreed. Justice, not just vengeance." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal, Miss Severin?" She looked at his hand. Strong fingers. A scar across the knuckles. The hand of a man who'd survived his own battles. "One more condition," she said. "If this arrangement ever puts you in danger, if keeping me becomes a liability, you let me go. No argument. That won't happen. Promise me anyway." A pause. Then, "I promise." Leora took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, unexpectedly reassuring. "Then we have a deal, Your Grace." 3 days later, Leora sat in a carriage bearing the Valdris family crest, watching the landscape transform from rolling farmland to craggy hills shrouded in mist. Stormhaven. The name suited the place. Even the sky seemed different here, heavier, charged with the promise of tempests. Theron rode alongside the carriage on a black stallion, checking on her periodically through the window. He'd arranged everything with military precision. Physicians, clothing, and travel documents identifying her as a distant cousin visiting from the eastern provinces. The lie would hold until the wedding. After that, she'd need a new identity entirely. "We'll arrive within the hour," he said during one such check. "The staff knows you're coming. They've been told you're my betrothed. A match arranged through family connections. Nothing more." "And they believe that?" "They believe what I tell them to believe." The carriage crested a ridge, and Leora's breath caught. Stormhaven Manor rose from the cliffs like it had grown there, all dark stone and narrow windows, towers reaching toward the perpetually clouded sky. Below, the sea crashed against rocks with relentless fury. It was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Elegant, dangerous, utterly uncompromising. "It's been in my family for 6 generations," Theron said, noting her expression. "Built to withstand sieges. We've never fallen. It looks like a fortress. It is one." He spurred his horse forward. "Welcome to your new home, Miss Severin." The staff assembled in the great hall to greet them. Leora counted at least 40 people, from the stern-faced housekeeper to the youngest kitchen boy. At the front stood a woman with silver-streaked auburn hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Your Grace," the woman said with a precise curtsy. "Welcome home. Mrs. Brennick, this is Miss Leora Severin. She'll be the Duchess of Stormhaven within the fortnight. See that she has everything she needs." Mrs. Brennick's gaze swept over Leora, cataloging every detail. The borrowed dress that didn't quite fit, the healing bruises barely visible beneath powder, the way she held herself despite obvious pain. "Of course, Your Grace." Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. "Welcome to Stormhaven, Miss Severin. We're honored to serve you." "Thank you, Mrs. Brennick." Theron was already moving toward the interior. "Your rooms are in the East Tower. Mrs. Brennick will show you. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, your education begins." "Education?" He paused, glancing back. "You're about to become a duchess. You have 2 weeks to learn what most women spend a lifetime preparing for." A flicker of dry amusement crossed his face. "I hope you're a quick study." Then he vanished into the shadows of the manor, leaving Leora standing in the great hall, surrounded by strangers, wondering what exactly she'd agreed to. The next 10 days blurred into an exhausting routine. Mornings, etiquette lessons with a stern tutor named Master Calloway, who seemed personally offended by her common origins. Afternoons, history of the Valdres family, political alliances, enemies to avoid. Evenings, dinner with Theron in the formal dining room, where they sat at opposite ends of a table built for 30. The distance between them felt intentional, strategic. Everything with him was strategic. But slowly, incrementally, that distance began to shrink. It started with small things. Theron appearing in the library when she was studying, correcting Master Calloway's more outdated information. Theron sending a warmer cloak to her rooms when he noticed her shivering during their garden walks. Theron asking questions about her life before the Creightons, listening with genuine interest rather than mere politeness. "You were educated at a charity school?" he asked one evening over dinner. "Until I was 16. Then I became a governess. It was the only respectable option for a woman without family or fortune." "You could have married." "I could have settled." Leora set down her fork. "There's a difference. I watched my mother settle for a man who drank away every penny she earned. She died worn out and penniless when I was 14. I swore I'd never repeat her mistake." "So you chose independence over security?" "I chose self-respect over comfortable misery." She met his eyes across the candlelit expanse. "Is that so strange?" "No." His expression warmed, a rare glimpse beneath the controlled surface. "It's admirable." The compliment caught her off guard. She looked away, flustered. As the days passed, their evening conversations grew longer. Theron began sharing fragments of his own history. His mother had died when he was young. His father had been distant, consumed by politics. His brother Maven had been his only true companion. "He was better than me," Theron admitted one night, standing by the library fire while rain lashed the windows. Kinder, more hopeful. He believed people were essentially good. "And you don't?" "I believe people are essentially self-interested. Goodness is a choice, and most people don't make it." "That's bleak. That's realistic." He turned to face her. "But occasionally, someone surprises me." The way he looked at her made Leora's pulse quicken. She rose from her chair, needing movement to dispel the sudden tension. "I want to do more than just testify," she said. "I want to be part of the strategy, not just evidence, a partner." "You're asking to be involved in something dangerous." "I'm already involved in something dangerous. The difference is whether I have any control over it." Theron was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well. Tomorrow night, I'll share what I've gathered on Creighton over the past 4 years. Every document. Every suspicion. We'll build the case together." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. "This path leads to dark places, Leora. Once you see what I've seen, you can't unsee it. I've already seen a woman murdered in front of me. How much darker can it get?" His expression flickered with what might have been respect. "You might be surprised." He left her alone with the fire and the rain and the growing realization that her feelings toward the Duke of Stormhaven were becoming far more complicated than strategy allowed. The test came sooner than expected. Lord Cavendish, a neighboring baron and longtime ally of the Valdres family, arrived unannounced with his wife and daughter for an informal visit. Theron's expression when he received the news told Leora everything she needed to know. This was not informal. This was an inspection. "They'll be watching everything," Theron warned her as they prepared to receive their guests. "How you speak, how you move, whether you're worthy of the Valdres name. And if they decide I'm not? Then rumors will spread before we're ready. Creighton will hear. Our advantage disappears." Leora straightened her shoulders. "Then I won't give them reason to doubt." The dinner was an elaborate performance. 7 courses, 3 forks. Conversation that danced around politics without ever landing directly. Lady Cavendish asked pointed questions about Leora's family, her education, and her connections. Leora answered with the careful half-truths Theron had prepared, weaving a story of distant relations and modest gentility. But it was the daughter, Miss Portia Cavendish, who proved most dangerous. "I find it so romantic," Portia said sweetly over dessert. "A whirlwind courtship. How exactly did you and the Duke meet?" "Through mutual acquaintances in the eastern provinces," Leora replied smoothly. "His Grace was traveling on business. We were introduced at a local assembly." "How fortunate. And when was this assembly?" The question was a trap. Portia's eyes glittered with barely concealed malice. She suspected something. "Early autumn," Theron interjected, his voice casual but firm. "The Harrington harvest celebration. Dreadfully dull affair, except for one remarkable introduction." He looked at Leora with an expression so warm, so genuine, that even she almost believed it. "I knew within a fortnight that I'd found someone extraordinary," he continued. "Someone worth protecting." The words hung in the air. Lady Cavendish's skepticism softened. Even Portia seemed momentarily disarmed. "How lovely," Lady Cavendish murmured. "True connection is so rare these days." After the guests departed the next morning, Theron found Leora in the library, slumped in a chair with exhaustion. "You did well," he said. "I survived. Barely." "You more than survived." Lady Cavendish was charmed. "She'll spread favorable reports throughout the county." He paused. "And you handled Portia's interrogation admirably. She's caught 3 fortune hunters with that assembly question." "I noticed the trap." "And you didn't flinch." Admiration colored his voice. "You're a natural at this, Leora. Better than most who've trained their whole lives." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." He turned toward the door. "But yes, also a compliment." He left before she could respond, but Leora felt warmth spreading through her chest. She'd passed the first test. Now came the real battle. The wedding had been small, private, witnessed only by Mrs. Brennick and the household chaplain. No fanfare. No society announcement. Just vows exchanged in Stormhaven's ancient chapel while rain streaked the windows. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived by royal courier. The autumn gala at Thornwood Palace, hosted by the Marquis of Ashbury. The most prestigious social event of the season. Attendance was mandatory for anyone who mattered in society. Lord Ambrose Crichton would be there. "This is too soon," Leora said, staring at the elegant script. "We've only been married 2 weeks." "Which is exactly why we must attend." Theron took the invitation from her trembling hands. "Refusing would raise questions. Appearing shows confidence, and it gives Crichton no time to prepare. He thinks I'm dead." "He hopes you're dead. There's a difference." Theron's eyes met hers. "The moment he sees you alive, standing beside me as my Duchess, his world will shift. We need to see how he reacts, where he's vulnerable." The journey to Thornwood Palace took 2 days. Leora spent most of it reviewing everything Theron had shared about Crichton's network, the allies, the business partners, the servants who might be persuaded to talk. "There's a woman," Theron said on the final night before their arrival. "Mrs. Delphine Vance. She was Lady Helena's lady's maid before being dismissed without reference 6 months ago." "Dismissed why?" "Officially, theft. But I've spoken with her. She claims she was removed because she'd witnessed arguments between Helena and Crichton, heard fragments of conversations about hidden accounts, falsified documents." "Where is she now?" "Working as a seamstress in the capital, struggling, frightened." Theron's jaw tightened. "She'll be at the gala. I've arranged for her to serve as one of the temporary staff." "You're bringing her into the lion's den?" "I'm giving her a choice, just as I gave you one." Thornwood Palace blazed with light as their carriage approached. Hundreds of guests milled about the entrance, all silk and jewels and practiced smiles. Leora's borrowed finery suddenly felt like costume rather than clothing. Theron helped her down from the carriage, his hand steady on her waist. "Remember," he murmured, "you're the Duchess of Stormhaven. You outrank nearly everyone here. Let them see that. And if Creighton approaches? Then you smile, say nothing of substance, and let him wonder exactly how much you've told me." The announcement of their names rippled through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. His Grace Theron Valdris, Duke of Stormhaven, and Her Grace Leora Valdris, Duchess of Stormhaven. Heads turned, whispers erupted. Leora kept her posture impeccable, her expression serene, even as her heart threatened to pound through her ribs. Then she saw him. Lord Ambrose Creighton stood near the center of the ballroom, glass in hand, surrounded by admirers. He was laughing at something, his handsome face animated with false charm. His eyes found hers across the crowded room. The laughter died. The glass froze halfway to his lips. For one perfect moment, Leora watched absolute terror flicker across the face of the man who'd tried to have her killed. Then the mask slammed back into place. He smiled, nodded pleasantly, and turned away as if she were of no consequence. But she'd seen it. That fraction of a second when he'd realized his carefully constructed lie was standing 20 feet away, very much alive. "Breathe," Theron whispered, his hand finding the small of her back. "Did you see his face?" "I saw. He's afraid." "Good." Theron guided her deeper into the crowd. "Let him be afraid. It makes people careless." They'd barely made it 10 steps before a woman intercepted them. Elegant, silver-haired, with eyes that cut like diamonds. "Your Grace," she said to Theron with a curtsy that conveyed respect without deference. "How delightful. And this must be your mysterious bride." "Lady Ashbury, may I present my wife, Leora." The Marquis's wife, their hostess. Quite possibly the most influential woman in the room. Lady Ashbury studied Leora with undisguised curiosity. "The whole kingdom is talking about you, my dear. A duke married in secret. No family announcement. No society introduction. People are speculating wildly." "Let them speculate," Leora replied calmly. "The truth is far simpler than rumor." "Is it?" Lady Ashbury's lips curved. "How refreshing. I do hope you'll survive the evening." She swept away before Leora could ask what she meant. The gala was a battlefield disguised as a party. Leora spent hours navigating conversations laden with hidden meanings, deflecting questions designed to expose weakness, smiling until her face ached. Through it all, she felt Creighton's gaze following her like a predator tracking wounded prey. He didn't approach directly. He was too clever for that. Instead, he sent proxies, allies who happened to mention the tragedy of his poor wife, the instability of the governess who'd been accused, the relief that justice would prevail once the murderess was found. Each word was a knife aimed at Leora's composure. She deflected them all. Near midnight, she slipped onto a balcony overlooking the darkened gardens, desperate for air that wasn't poisoned with politics. She wasn't alone for long. "You're holding up better than I expected." Theron emerged from the shadows, closing the balcony doors behind him. In the moonlight, his features seemed softer, the hard edges momentarily gentled. "I'm exhausted," she admitted. "Every conversation feels like combat." "It is combat. You're just fighting with words instead of swords." "I think I'd prefer swords. At least they're honest." A hint of a smile crossed his face. He moved to stand beside her at the railing, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "I saw you talking to Mrs. Vance," she said quietly. "The lady's maid. She's agreed to help. She has letters, correspondence between Creighton and someone in the Treasury. Hidden accounts. Embezzlement on a massive scale." That's what Helena discovered. And why she had to die. Theron's voice was cold and precise. Creighton's been stealing from the crown for years. If those letters become public, he won't just lose his reputation, he'll lose his head. Then we have him. We have evidence. We still need to survive long enough to use it. Leora turned to face him. Theron, what happens after? When Creighton is destroyed, when justice is served, what happens to us? He was quiet for a long moment. The question hung between them, heavier than the night air. I don't know, he admitted finally. I've spent so long focused on revenge that I never considered what came after. And now? Now I find myself considering things I never expected. His hand reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, almost tentative. You've changed something in me, Leora. I don't know what to call it yet. But it's real. Theron. He kissed her. It wasn't strategic, wasn't performed for observers or designed to maintain their cover. It was soft and searching and achingly genuine, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious. She kissed him back, letting herself fall into the moment, into him. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Leora felt tears pricking her eyes. I didn't plan for this, she whispered. Neither did I. His forehead rested against hers. But I'm not sorry. The balcony doors burst open. A footman in Ashbury livery stood there, pale and urgent. Your Grace, forgive the interruption. Lady Ashbury requests your presence immediately. Lord Creighton has demanded an audience. He's making accusations. About the Duchess. The warmth of the moment shattered. Reality crashed back like a wave of ice water. Theron's expression hardened into stone. What kind of accusations? He claims she's an impostor, a murderess. He's demanding her arrest. Leora felt dread settle in her stomach like a stone. The battle had begun. The ballroom fell silent as Leora and Theron descended the grand staircase. A crowd had gathered near the center of the room, parting like waves as they approached. Lord Creighton stood beside Lady Ashbury, his face arranged in an expression of righteous concern. Ah, there she is, Creighton said, his voice carrying across the marble floors. The woman who murdered my wife, and somehow convinced the Duke of Stormhaven to shelter her from justice. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Leora felt hundreds of eyes on her, weighing, judging. That's quite an accusation, Lord Creighton. Theron's voice was dangerously calm, particularly against a duchess. A title obtained through deception. This woman was a governess in my household. She was caught stealing confidential documents. When confronted, she poisoned my beloved Helena and fled before she could be arrested. That's a lie. Every head turned toward Leora. She hadn't planned to speak, but the words emerged with a force she didn't know she possessed. I did not steal anything. I did not poison anyone. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. I witnessed you murder your own wife, Lord Creighton. I saw you standing over her body with the vial of poison still in your hand. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. The ravings of a desperate criminal, Creighton scoffed. She'll say anything to escape the gallows. Then let's examine the facts, Theron said, moving to stand beside Leora. You claim my wife is a thief and a murderess, yet you have no witnesses to the alleged theft. No physical evidence of her involvement in Lady Helena's death, only your word. My word has always been sufficient. Your word sent my brother to the executioner's block 4 years ago. Theron's voice cut like a blade. On fabricated charges of treason, charges that conveniently eliminated the one person investigating your financial irregularities. The crowd's murmurs shifted in tone. Uncertainty crept into faces that had been hostile moments before. This is outrageous, Creighton sputtered. You're deflecting from your wife's crimes with these ancient grievances. Am I? Theron pulled a sheaf of papers from his coat. These are bank records showing transfers from Crown Treasury accounts to private holdings in your name, over £300,000 in the last 5 years alone. Forgeries, authenticated by 3 independent banking officials. Theron handed the papers to Lady Ashbury. Your ladyship, I believe you'll find the signatures quite genuine. Lady Ashbury examined the documents, her expression growing increasingly grave. And there's more. A new voice joined the fray. Mrs. Delphine Vance stepped forward from the crowd, trembling but resolute. I served Lady Helena for 6 years. I heard their arguments. I saw the bruises she tried to hide. And I heard Lord Creighton tell her that if she continued asking questions about his business affairs, she'd regret it. You're a disgraced servant, Creighton sneered. Dismissed for theft. Dismissed because I knew too much. Mrs. Vance's voice grew stronger. You planted those stolen items in my room, just like you planted evidence against the Duke's brother. It's what you do, Lord Creighton. You destroy anyone who threatens you. This is absurd. Creighton looked around wildly, seeking allies in the crowd. You cannot believe these people over me. I sit on the King's Council. I have served this nation for 20 years. You've stolen from this nation for 20 years. Leora stepped forward again, her fear transforming into something harder, colder. And when your wife discovered the truth, when she threatened to expose you, you silenced her. Then you blamed me because I was convenient, a nobody, a governess without family or connections. She met his eyes directly, letting him see that she wasn't the frightened girl he'd tried to destroy. But I survived. And now everyone knows what you really are. I want him removed from my home. Lady Ashbury's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She handed the documents to her husband, her expression disgusted. Lady Ashbury, Creighton began, surely you can't. I can, and I will. These accusations require investigation. Until then, you are not welcome at Thornwood. She turned to her butler. Have Lord Creighton's carriage brought around immediately. This isn't over, Creighton hissed, his composure finally cracking. You think you've won something tonight? I will destroy you. Both of you. I'll see you hanged for this. No, Theron said quietly. You won't. He stepped closer to Creighton, close enough that only Leora could hear his next words. 4 years ago, you murdered my brother and thought you'd gotten away with it. Tonight, you've just confessed your methods in front of 200 witnesses. The investigation will find everything. The embezzlement, the bribery, the murders. And when it does, I'll be there to watch you fall. Creighton's face went white. 2 footmen appeared to escort him out. As he passed Leora, he paused, his eyes burning with hatred. You should have died in that ditch. But I didn't. She held his gaze without flinching. And you'll spend the rest of your very short life regretting that. They led him away. The ballroom erupted in whispered conversations, shocked exclamations, and rapid realignments of allegiance. Lady Ashbury approached Leora, grudging approval evident on her face. It seems I underestimated you, Duchess. Most people do. A mistake I won't make twice. Lady Ashbury took her hand. Welcome to society, my dear. I suspect you'll do very well. They didn't speak until they reached their guest chambers. The moment the door closed behind them, Leora's composure shattered. Her hands began to shake. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The weight of everything, the accusations, the confrontation, the hundreds of watching eyes, crashed over her like a tidal wave. I can't believe that just happened. Theron caught her before her knees buckled, guiding her to a chair by the fire. He poured brandy, pressed it into her hands, and knelt before her. Drink. Slowly. She obeyed, the liquor burning a path of warmth through her chest. You were magnificent, he said quietly. I've seen seasoned politicians crumble under less pressure. I was terrified. Terror and courage aren't opposites. Courage is being terrified and acting anyway. His hand covered hers. You didn't just survive tonight, Leora. You won. We won. Yes. The careful mask he'd worn for years fell away completely. We. He stood, walking to the window, his silhouette dark against the moonlit glass. When I found you in that ditch, I saw an opportunity, a weapon I could use against Creighton. His voice was rough. I told myself that's all this was. Strategy, convenience. But somewhere along the way, the lie became unsustainable. Theron, let me finish. He turned to face her. I've spent 4 years building walls, telling myself that revenge was enough, that I didn't need anything else. But you've dismantled every defense I had without even trying. He crossed the room, kneeling before her again. I love you, Leora. Not because you're useful. Not because of what you can help me accomplish. I love you because you're brave and honest and you see the world as it should be, not as it is. He took her face in his hands. I love you because you make me want to be better than I am. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. I didn't want to. I told myself it was dangerous, foolish, that I'd already trusted the wrong person once. But you're not him. You're nothing like him. No. You saved me, not just from the rain, from becoming something bitter and broken. She pressed her forehead to his. You gave me back my life, and then you gave me yours. He kissed her, tender and deep, a promise sealed without words. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. What happens now? She whispered. Now we go home. We build a case that will stand in any court, and we watch Creighton face the justice he's escaped for far too long. And after that? He smiled, the first genuine smile she'd ever seen from him. After that, we live. 6 months later, Leora stood at the window of Stormhaven Manor, watching rain fall over the cliffs, the same rain that had nearly killed her, the same relentless downpour that had washed her blood into the mud of a nameless road. Now it seemed almost beautiful. Behind her, the study was filled with correspondence, letters from women seeking help. Women who'd been abandoned, accused, silenced by powerful men who thought themselves untouchable. The Stormhaven Foundation, Leora called it. A refuge for those whom the law had failed. Legal assistance, safe housing, a chance to rebuild. Theron had funded it without question. You survived, he'd said. Now help others do the same. Lord Ambrose Creighton had been executed 3 months prior. The investigation had uncovered everything. The embezzlement, the bribery, and the murders. 3 other victims had come forward. Women like Leora who'd witnessed his crimes and been silenced. The trial had lasted 2 weeks. The verdict had taken minutes. Maven's name had been cleared posthumously. A memorial stood in the Capitol, honoring those wrongfully condemned. Justice, not just revenge. Footsteps approached. Warm arms encircled her from behind. You're brooding, Theron murmured against her hair, remembering. The ditch? The choice. She turned in his arms, facing him. You could have ridden past that night. You had no reason to stop. I had every reason. He kissed her forehead. I just didn't know it yet. She touched his face, tracing the familiar lines. Do you believe in fate now? I believe in choices. I chose to stop. You chose to survive. We chose each other. He smiled, the expression still rare enough to feel like a gift. That's not fate. That's something better. The rain continued to fall, but inside Stormhaven, there was only warmth. Leora had been left in the rain to die, abandoned by a world that saw her as disposable. But someone had stopped. Someone had whispered, "Stay awake," into the darkness and refused to let her go. And that choice had changed everything. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story touched something in you, the fight for justice, the power of being chosen, the strength it takes to survive, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling us your favorite moment and where you're listening from. If you're ready for another story where love conquers the impossible, subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the next chapter. You're the reason these stories exist. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even in the darkest storms, someone might stop for you.